Welcome back. Yes, those two gentlemen will join us as we take a look at some of the developments playing out in the country regarding security. But as you see, let me just go ahead and introduce the guests. Both of them, Honorable Shehu Balarabe Kakale, is a member representing Bodinga Dangashinga Constituency, Sokoto State. I got some of that right. And then we'll have Brigadier General Jonathan Temlong, OON. He's the first commander, Multinational Joint Task Force. He's the former president, Alumni Association of the National Defense College and Security. Both of them joining us virtually. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, now, let's situate this. Let's take a look at, listen to what the president said about security. This was while he was receiving the envoys of Mexico and Canada.
I urge you to also build friendship and acquaintances in the course of your stay in our country. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the devastating effect of global insecurity, climate change, and the post-coronavirus era has devastated global economies. Nations continue to struggle to recover from these multiple global challenges. The ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine has undermined the progress countries have achieved in tackling food security in the last decade, while the political instability in Libya continues to fuel terrorism in the Sahel, as well as scatter the democratic sustenance in both West and Central African regions. Nigeria is not left out of the equation as we are fighting to rid our country of banditry, kidnapping, harder farmer crisis, and insurgency. We are, however, making meaningful progress with the support of friendly countries like yours to sustain these fights until we overcome these challenges.
President Muhammadu Buhari talking about us making progress in addressing the security challenges facing the country. Let me start with you, Brigadier General Temlong. Give us your assessment, because I mean, you clearly, you've been there, you've done that, you're keeping tabs on what is playing out. His latest directive as well, which we'll focus on. But what's your assessment of how we're addressing this insecurity challenge on our hands?
Well, thank you very much. Our major problem has been that as a nation, we're unable to understand the threats we're dealing with. It appears that the Nigerian citizens and even those in government believe that it is the military and the security agencies that should deal with this situation. We're dealing with a very terrible existential threat, a threat that is asymmetric, a threat that melts within the society. There is no symmetry between the threat and Nigerians. The megad that people have in their houses are informants of these bandits and terrorists. Those who carry water to them as merua are the informants. Those who sell cigarettes are informants, selling drugs to them. They employ machine people, motorcycle people, which they call akada, and send them around. So they are all over within us, and it's something that they don't wear. There is nothing written on their forehead that this is a terrorist or this is a bandit or this is a kidnapper. We wine and dine with them, and if you see some of the serious security breaches that has happened in such a way that, for example, there was an incident here in Bom. They came in there and sat down with them in the drinking parlor. They were buying drinks for them. The people were enjoying them, and these were strange people, not from that community. One of them almost wanted to ask, who are these people? And the other one said, can't you see that they are good guys? They are buying drinks for us. When the time was up, they stepped out. And after about 5 minutes, they were attacked. The same thing happened in Jalingo. Somebody walking with a backpack bought a bottle of beer. After some time, he didn't even drink it, walk out. And when he walked out, the explosion went on. So what we need is an approach that is an all of society approach, an all of government approach. Because this approach has just been left for the security forces and the armed forces alone. It will not succeed in an asymmetric operation. Even in the real war, you need the national will behind you for the armed forces to fight properly. Today, if you see casualties that are set out, the first thing is that people are throwing them all over in the social media without regards to the families and responsibilities of the people that are being killed or being maimed. So it shows as if people are happy. When something bad happened to members of the armed forces, security forces, that in itself is demoralizing. So we need to up our game and make it an all of society approach where everybody is involved in fighting these people. They live within us. They don't live off the ground. They buy the food from within us. They get their supplies from us. They buy the fuels that they use in their machines for transportation within us. They buy the motorcycles. They buy the spare parts of the motorcycles from Nigerians and from, in fact, sometimes our mechanics, they repair their vehicles and repair their motorcycles. So if we don't actually look at this thing and change the approach that everybody is involved in fighting this deadly crime, the crime criminals, then we are going to continue having this problem. There is no magic that the military will do. We further need...
Pardon me. So speaking about changing approach and getting everybody involved, what do you do when residents look at the reporting lines? For instance, if previously they've experienced or haven't reported the matter to a security agency, and it turns out that, well, persons who may have been arrested were released and came back to society to hunt them, or persons came back and released information and said it was this person who gave us information about you, or they see the agencies brutalizing them and that relationship is not there, or perhaps the reporting lines are not well spelled out. There's no number, no emergency number that anyone can call and be guaranteed that they will respond within a certain amount of time. So what do citizens do in that kind of scenario in order for them to participate and be on board, as you suggested?
Well, thank you very much. Not to say that there are no bad acts in the security agencies and the military, but if the citizens take it up upon themselves, in fact, I've seen areas where the citizens insisted and the police staff were posted out of that place. They have risen up against tyranny by the security agencies. And if the citizens decide to do that, because if there is a known case of somebody reporting, there are multiple channels of reports. I believe that if you report to his DPO, if he's a policeman, I report to his DPO, and it doesn't take any action, you can go up to scale it up to the commissioner of police or even the CP, the IGP. I think what we need to do is that for us to hold the security agencies accountable. And for us to hold them accountable, we too must be accountable. So I think what our advice is that the police high command and all the high commands must make sure that they up the game and fish out those who are bad eggs in their organizations and deal with them appropriately as a means of setting examples to the bad ones. These things come in within the society itself. Sometimes it is we who go back to them and start saying, these are our boys. Why do you want to deal with them? Why do you want to treat them badly? It is the citizens. It is a society, highly placed people. Unfortunately, the politicians go into it because some of those things that they are thugs. So when they are arrested, the next thing is that they go all out to make sure that they are released. So it becomes so much of a burden. But if we accept as a nation that we want to fight it, these people are instrument of state policy. We can actually hold them accountable once we decide to hold ourselves accountable. There is nothing They cannot be above us. After all, the political leadership, the authority is vested with the civil authority. So if they don't do that and we push pressure on the government and they're not able to rein in those bad acts in the various organizations, then unfortunately we have the good thing about democracy is that we have our voters' cards. They have only a lifespan, after which they must come back to us to renew their tenure. So I think we have to, and thank God, the president has come out now, giving the armed forces and the security agencies a better way, a leeway to deal with them in all ways. That means it has escalated from probably what we had during the civil war. We started with the police action before we went into a full-scale military action. So it has been escalated now. And I think we will get better results. But we need the citizens, we need the governments to cooperate, the local governments, the state governments, and the federal government, and the citizens to be part and parcel of this effort.
All right, well, we'll come back to you so you can shed more light on that particular component of the president's directive. But let me bring in Honorable Kakali on this matter. In context of the president's comments that we're making progress in the scheme of things. So you are in Sokoto, you're also affected. So could you relate it with the president's speech? Are you seeing the kind of progress the president spoke about in Sokoto, for instance, where some attacks also occurred?
Well, first of all, let me correct your pronunciation of my constituency. It's Botenga Dengishini Traitor Federal Constituency of Sokoto.
I get that. Thank you.
The security situation in Sokoto has improved a little bit. But you know, this attack still it's coming on, you know, sporadically, like what in Trota just last week, where bandits were dislodged by security agents when they got information of their attacks, and they ran into our local government, and villagers were so scared, and a lot of them drowned in trying to flee from the bandits. But overall, the situation is not getting better. But for my state, particularly for my constituency, I really want to commend the federal government, the armed forces, and of course the state government, the local government, and our communities in what they have been doing over the last few months to improve the situation. I can specifically speak for my constituency, both in the Engagement Theatre. There have been some improvements, deployments of military personnel and their assets, as well as other security agents, the police. They have been doing their best. We have the greater respect for armed forces, for the police and other security agencies, people who put their lives, who put their lives on the line to defend all of us. We feel for them. But the security situation as it is now is terribly, all over the country, is terribly embarrassing, it's unacceptable, and it's the fault of the federal government. In that respect, overall security of the nation, honestly, the federal government has failed to do its duty. The wanton killings, we have been going for burials, open burials, over many years, and we have given, advices and suggestions in multiple quarters and multiple fora. But it's like sometimes they just do as they wish. Everybody, but the people who are in charge, particularly the political class and the executive, know better. They have all the intelligence they need, and they have the resources. But of course, there are still a lot of things where with limits of what the security agencies can do. They have said it loud and clear. They need more equipment. They need more personnel. They need technology. But these things are not there. One of the major problems we're having is when the firepower of our security personnel, is at par. That's almost equal to a parallel, or sometimes maybe below what you have with the terrorists. So what do you expect our security personnel to do? We have said it, and we have called on, on the federal government, the executive, to really do more in equipping our security forces, particularly in areas of technology, drones, helicopters, MRAPs, and this ATV. How many of them have you seen deployed? Where are the Tucanos?
Well,
what happened to them?
As a follow-up to that point you made, there's still another point I need to take you up on, but quickly follow up. When you said that, I mean, there needs to be more done in terms of equipment and all of that, recall the president's statement just some days back saying he has done, I mean, a lot, in fact, even more than is expected of him in terms of morale, equipment, and all of that to support the military. So are you saying essentially that the president still needs to do more than the more that he said he has done?
The president of the Federal Republic needs to do more. Of course, in terms of military budget or the security budget, it has really gone up about 2.5 trillion or so. But as the commander-in-chief, he needs to follow up. Where does the money go? Where are this equipment? If orders have been placed, where are this equipment? Look at the example of Super Tucanos. For how many years? Hundreds of millions of dollars paid, but we don't see them flying. I've never seen a Tucano in Sokoto State, for example, in my constituency, or in operations, real active combat operations anywhere. And they are just lying somewhere, cooling off. And then the protective, heavy duty vehicles. This security personnel complain to us. When sometimes, there's a distress call in the night, they can't go, to such locations of 5, 6, 10 kilometers, particularly, because they will lay ambush at them. It has happened multiply. They call the current vehicles, some of them that are using the Buffalo trucks and other Helios trucks. They call them soft skin, and they just will lay and gun them down. There are these armored vehicles, this mine-resistant ambush protection attack vehicles that they need. If they go to the enclave of these terrorists and bandits and engage them, So I think the only thing left out now are two things, But painfully, is either our military personnel with the right equipment and technology go in with the risk of collateral damage, or the government has to negotiate with these people, particularly to release, these innocent Nigerians have been captive for many months. Because these are the only two options left.
Okay, we'll come to that. We'll come to that point, Honourable. By the way, the Super Tucano you talked about, in fact, just on the front page, I think, of the leadership this morning, it's been said that the Air Force engaged the Super Tucano. So the question then will be, just how much do we see that from time to time? What is the frequency? How is it deployed? Is it deployed every time? Perhaps those questions need to be answered as well. But quickly, before I go back to Brigadier General, he made a point earlier on about this all of the society approach, saying that security essentially should be all of the society approach. And coming off, that perspective, I should say, the latest attack we saw in Sokoto, where dozens were killed, would you say that perhaps was a failure of an all of the society approach, maybe not just security, but even the residents, the people themselves, based on the theory that Brigadier General Temlon gave about the all of the society approach?
Some of the comments of the Brigadier General, but I disagree with a lot of others. Why he's saying is, of course, in all of community approach. But what will the community do when bandits are going around and challenge of AK-47 with huge amount of money in their hands? Some of those things he said that they are doing, they are coerced and forced to do them. They do them under duress. If you don't do, they kill you. You have to give them information, bring them food. Sometimes they take hostage and even demand for these things. You have to bring them. And what will a private citizen do when he is not armed? He's not trained to. These guys have continuous supply of weapons. They have massive amount of money in their hands. But I think the general should really remember the ransoms they now collect goes into billions. Recently, there's a group that collected almost $1 billion. With $1 billion naira, you can put an informant in almost every door, every village, and pay them huge amounts of money, monthly. Probably pay them more than security agencies, and tell of every movement, every action by any other person. There is no community. A lot of them, of course, there are those, and they are paid for it. Let me tell you this: they are on intelligence network of these bandits and terrorists. In some areas, in some locations in this country, are even far organized and much more efficient than that of our security agencies.
Honorable, you said $1 billion naira was paid to one of the groups recently. Who paid them?
$1 billion.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, If you have 10 people paying 100 million and or thereabout, cumulatively, that's almost $1 billion.
All right.
Definitely.
So you're referring to the Abuja-Kaduna train passenger kidnap. Is that what you're referring to?
Imagine what they can do with that money. You can imagine they can deploy it, not only in buying their equipment, but in getting information and information from everywhere, even from within government agencies. I'm telling you. So this thing has been allowed to drag for long, and that's why I've said the default is squarely that of the federal government. And of course, we are all part of it. I am not absolving the National Assembly. We are doing our best, but also our own best is not good enough. We have ways to checkmate and call the executive to order. The National Assembly have those checkmating points and can really make them to sit up and do the needful. The National Assembly has done more than 200, interventions in terms of either motions, bills, reports, and whatever, even a security summit. But the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the executive, most of the times, they don't, adhere to those things. We are supposed to be an independent government, yes, putting a check on the executive, and in some areas interdependent. But honestly, we are all in pain, about what's happening in this country.
Honorable Kakali, I'd like to follow up on that point, but let me just touch base with Brigadier General Temlong briefly. Brigadier, what's different about the tone of the president's current directive when he says to security forces, end this madness? How different is it in tone and intention from what he said earlier to them, that they should wipe out these bandits from the face of the earth? What should we expect from this?
Well, what we should expect is an escalation of the fight, taking it to the terrorists. You can see, just for example, like what the madness that happened around Zuba recently. The troops followed them up into the bush, into the forest, and wiped them out. So I think that directive in itself has escalated the operations itself that they should do. It's further means that then we'll have to commit more resources towards this fight. You see, unfortunately, Nigerians keep saying that we'll spend so much on yes, rightly so, it has. But go and ask the Americans how much, or you can even Google, how much is a Hellfire missile that was used to kill al-Zawahiri, the Al-Qaeda leader in Afghanistan? 1 and 2 are used. And how much is that drone that was used to do that? So if you put them in millions of dollars, it comes to so many billions of naira for just that asset that was used, just the asset that was used to eliminate that person. And the Honorable rightly pointed out that these people spend so much money on intelligence gathering. And so the only counter to it is for the whole citizens itself to be able to isolate the bad people amongst them. Because government do not have that much money to be spending. The 1 billion, he said, they spend so much in the areas. Yes, and if you see those who are doing it for them, you'll be surprised. The last quarter of last year, of 2021, the fourth quarter, about 61 billion naira worth of motorcycles were imported into Nigeria. Who are those using those machines? Where are those new versions? And if we were to track some of this, we should know that there is a higher demand of motorcycles. And Nigerians are crying that they don't have money. So I think these are some of the security indicators for us that these people are not relenting, they are buying more weapons. Why are they upping so much money on ransom? They are using that money to buy weapons. And so if we want to survive as a nation, we have to close our eyes and use more money to buy weapons. And some of these weapons, they are not off the shelf, some don't come by easily. And that comes to the point that I've been reiterating, that we must use technology as a force multiplier. You can imagine if it were in those days, Americans would have used an airborne or special operation forces, insert them on the ground in Afghanistan before they would take off that al-Zawahiri, the leader. But what they did was technology, which was a force multiplier. Technology, the drone just flew over this thing and fired the Hellfire missile, and lo and behold, eliminated the target. So I think we need more of this, and we can actually get these drones, have eyes in the sky, drones that can fire and take out these leaders wherever they are. Then they will know that there is no place for them to hide. Unless we up this game, unless we are, everybody is prepared to sacrifice for this thing to end. It appears in Nigeria here, when they are fighting in Sokoto, those in Calabar will say, oh, it's a Sokoto problem. It's a Nigerian problem. If it's in Maiduguri, those in Badagry will say, let them do their problem there. It is a Nigerian problem.
You know, Brigadier Temlong, when you say that we're already beginning to see results in terms of how they have taken the battle to the terrorists and, you know, there's some form of engagement, one wonders how holistic and, sustained this will be. And I'd like to, follow up on that, but it's time for us to take some messages. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll continue with that aspect of the conversation. Stay with Sunrise Daily. We'll be right back. Yes, indeed. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. And we're still looking at the insecurity situation in the country and how to further tackle it, especially coming off the president's response recently to security agents, directive rather, that they should end this madness. We'll also have with us Honorable Shehu Kakali and Brigadier General John Temlong. Thank you, gentlemen, for holding on. So, Brigadier Temlong, I wonder if you saw that report, that we played during the break. And, referencing that report, if we consider the intelligence given by the NSCDC, which has been confirmed yet again by a leader in the Southwest, look at these scenarios. And then the attack on Jos recently, just days ago, where there was intelligence to the effect that the attack was going to happen. And besides that, security operatives within the area withdrew to provide cover for the attackers and also to prevent collateral damage on their part. Now, if you consider the president's directive likened to this one in recent times, that if anyone is seen with an AK-47 rifle, the person should be shot on sight. So how holistic is this response and how sustained will it be if you consider that the insurgency is moving further down south without any visible results on the highways to deter any form of attack?
Well, in the first place, even you yourself does not look optimistic because you look pessimistic. You see, and that's what demoralizes the troops because they want the will behind them. Because the way you are asking, you are saying how sustained will the effort in Abuja be or all over the place. We must be optimistic and we must give support and good kudos to them what they were doing. They are operating in very difficult conditions. And you see, sometimes the news that you get are not the correct news because they are news that are sensational. Listen to the other side of the story too, because I think the military or the security forces will give you their own side of the story too, because when you give an information, it's different from intelligence. If you tell me that people are coming to attack Jos, who are those coming to attack Jos? What is their strength? What weapon? Is it the whole of Jos they are going to attack? Where are they coming from? What is their likely strength? You know, what time are they likely to do this? These are the whole thing that make up intelligence. But when you just say people are coming to attack, 10 days, nobody has come, and you deploy troops to that area, there are other competing areas and demands that require the presence of troops. So people say that they withdraw troops. It's not that they withdraw troops, but when you start crying fowl, and when there is no fowl, or you start saying that there's lion, and there's no lion. By the time there's a real lion comes and you shout lion, nobody is there. So I think we need to look at this thing holistically. We need to support these people and appreciate the efforts, the conditions under which they're operating. I think the good thing is that I will recommend to the Chief of Defense Staff that they should invite some of you anchors and embed you with the troops to go into this forest, at least for 24 hours. And when you come back, you will understand the situation they are talking about. And that means your reportage will be such a way that will start giving meaning and setting a narrative that will be supportive of the operations. We're not saying that you should support them fully when they are not doing the right thing. When they are doing the wrong thing, expose them, report them to the high command, expose them to the court of public opinion. But once they are doing good,
Brigadier,
well done.
Security is not the job of a broadcast journalist. And besides, you say that we're crying wolf where there is none. But intelligence was provided before the Kuje attack on the Kuje Correctional Center. In fact, it has now emerged to be that 44 intelligence reports was given, but nothing was done about it.
Well, look, the president has set up a committee, and I'm sure the DSS will bring out those 44 intelligence reports that the deputy speaker spoke about. And it will show whether that intelligence are actionable intelligence, real-time intelligence, or intelligence of general nature. So I think that will be left for the Mr. President to be able to do that. And I'm sure those who are culpable will be dealt with, definitely. And you have even heard recently, it's in the public domain, that about four informants have been arrested who facilitated the attack on Kuje prison. So are those informants members of the Boko Haram or the bandits? Well, we don't know who they are, but I'm sure we have gotten so much too from the informants. So I believe that that's the good thing about the intelligence, because you compartmentalize intelligence so that you don't compromise it. So that's why you have multiple intelligence agencies. The DSS are giving intelligence, the CDI or the DIA are giving out intelligence too, and the various security services have their own intelligence branch too. So you don't compromise the intelligence. What might be an intelligence from one source might not be an intelligence in the other one. So I believe that a comprehensive package, when this is analyzed and reported, will know whether those intelligence that were given were actionable intelligence, real-time intelligence, or intelligence of general nature.
Okay, so whilst the general public will need to be schooled on this, you gave some examples at the beginning of this conversation. You talked about how people went to drink in a place and people noticed that they looked quite different, and they didn't quite raise an alarm about it, and in no time they were victims of attacks. In that situation, what would you have had the residents do? Because we've noticed there have been many stories of these types of examples given, even in the Kuje attack. We understand that the farmers around Karikshi had gone to tell security agencies that they had seen strange movements around there. What would you make of the kind of reports when citizens give this sort of information to security agencies?
Well, you have seen where citizens themselves have risen against even the government, let alone the security agencies. But what needs to be done in our case is that we need to build the capacity of our citizens to be able to pick up items of intelligence, items that are relevant to people, and they'll be able to report or sometimes hold them. I'll give you an example. The Christmas Eve bombing in Jos, I think it was 2009 or 2010, the Merua people just push water, the truck pushers of water, took them to a place. They had the bombs inside, the IEDs inside the trucks and the water. They just left them there around the road and started walking away. In a normal situation where the people are security conscious, they would have held them and said, where are you people going to? They would have held them. And after holding them, they would have been able to be interrogated of this thing. There are cases here, I've seen it.
What I seem to hear you say, General, is that you want citizens to be able to perform citizens' arrest. You want them to go beyond reporting. Is that what you're asking for?
You have said citizens arrest. It's not allowed by our constitution, by our laws. It means that there are citizens arrest. Citizens must do what they're supposed to do to protect them. The first law of survival is self-preservation. Unless you are alive, all other things is useless on this side of the divide. So citizens must even be able to do citizens arrest. It's allowed by law. So why are we saying we cannot do what is allowed by the Nigerian laws? We must build the capacity of our citizens
usually degenerate when it comes to citizens arrest. Before you know what's happening, you also have a situation of jungle justice. And sometimes these things happen based on suspicion. It's not like as if there's been a court of law involved in these matters. Do you not fear that angle also coming in, or people just beginning to get paranoid, acting on their instincts and doing what they ought not to do?
Listen, I said you should build their capacity, and building capacity includes training. Okay? So it's not a matter of just people just behaving the way they want to behave. I was in this country in the 60s. I was young, old enough to understand that citizens were doing what was right. In fact, one single policeman, native authority policeman, will go into a village and blow his whistle, and the citizens will come out and help him in effecting an arrest. I saw those. Citizens were even arresting people who did wrong and brought them before the chiefs or the security. So I think we need to go back to the crossroads. It's not something that, you see, why are people taking laws into their hands? It's frustration. Because the criminal justice system has been so weak. And so if we don't actually force people to do what they're supposed to do and allow the criminals to reign over us, then these things will continue. But once the good people, who should be more in number, are able to stand up to these criminals, we will defeat them, even without firing a single shot. I mean, in a community, you see somebody who has no work because he's an informant of the bandits or terrorists. He spends so much money, he's living a life beyond his income, and nobody questions him, and nobody asks what questions, how is he coming about this money? And then the next thing is that strange people come to him in and out, he facilitates movement here and there, and the next thing is that the whole community is attacked, people are killed, or they go to a particular house and kidnap people for ransom because that person is well to do. I think we have to stop this madness. It is Nigerians themselves who stop this madness. We can't continue and allow.
It is how to stop it that we're talking to you about, General. I also want you to look at the response time of our security agencies in certain situations. Do you think that we're asking enough questions in that area?
Thank you very much about response time. I think it is a problem that even governance is a governance issue. The government, like the police, a governor should sit down with the police commissioner and ask him, I want a 5 minutes response time within the Jos metropolis, like for instance here. The police commissioner will go and work out the logistics and tell him that, look, if you want a 5 minutes response time, I will need this sort of vehicles, I will need these communication gadgets, I will need this. The medics will sit down and tell him, look, for us to be able to respond within 5 minutes and give you this, these things are done holistically. You just don't sit down and say you did a response time. Give me an example. In a local government, you have one vehicle provided by the local government to the police, or two, and you want a 10 minutes or 15 minutes response time. I think we're kidding. And then you have the numbers that are available there are not there. And that's why I say, for us to build up the numbers, we still need technology as a force multiplier, because it will take you some number of years to train, number of months to train a policeman. It will take you a number of months to train a soldier. And it will take him some 1 or 2 years to acquire experience to be able to face bullets. But you can deploy technology within months, and that technology will be a force multiplier and do what 100 soldiers can do for you, one item. And so we can do what 100 policemen can do for you, one item. So you definitely need the whole response time have a lot of parameters around it. It's not just because they are not being able to respond. They don't just have the capacity and capability to respond within the period that we expect.
Now,
we must build that capacity and capability for them to respond. And while they don't do it, you hold them responsible, because if the commissioner or even the military man tells you that for me to give you a 5 minutes response time, I need this, and if you give him that and he's not able to provide that 5 minutes response time, you can sanction him. You have all the moral courage and right to deal with him the way he's supposed to be dealt with.
that raises more questions, but Honorable Kakali, let's bring you in. Given that directive by the president that is giving them unfettered, unhindered directive to go all out and end all of this, what would you expect moving forward?
What number of directives? We have seen such directives before, countless number of them. They have no effect. With due respect, let me tell you that. Because even Nigerians, have really found, do not take presidential directives seriously any longer. And let me go back to what the general said about in the 60s, in the good old days when police go into a village, whistle, and then citizens help. But that was when the security system was decentralized. That was when the traditional institution had a role to play in security. But not now, when we have an over-centralized system where everything has to come from Abuja. And I heard him saying that local government chairman or the governors should buy vehicles. Yeah, they do, but I want to remind him that the police is under the exclusive legislative list in the Constitution. It's squarely, the function of the federal government of Nigeria. That's one of the problems we have with this country. We have a constitution that is analog, that is not working for us. And I believe, with the calls from many quarters, we need to really do a deep dive into amending the Nigerian constitution. For example, I support state police. All crimes are local, and their solutions are also local. You can't be sitting in Abuja and say you want to appropriate security in Tureta and Dengishu or Bodinga. It has not worked. For the past 10, 20 years, it's very obvious where we want to see. And the asymmetrical warfare too that has been talked about. Yes, non-conventional and asymmetrical warfare between the bandits and the then also military should also go asymmetrical. If these people can mobilize within no time to get and go and to get equipment and no matter how equipment and go and attack and perpetrate heinous crimes.
Honorable, these perspectives that you've given, there's so many out there who are equally frustrated with what is going on. But you are in the House, you are in the ruling party, you feel this way, and there are several of you who feel that way. But how do you then, why is it that there are several other colleagues of yours who don't feel this way? They seem to perhaps look the other way and don't see a need to support what you suggested. Go for state police, reorganize the policing architecture or security architecture in this country so that we can get results, because these threats, they don't distinguish between whatsoever. Why is this the case?
See, I think it's ultra-partisanship. Honestly, some of us really see allegiance to their party more than to their country. And the commander-in-chief himself do not support state police, and probably they tend to align with that position. But I think we need to tell the president, President Muhammadu Buhari, and commander-in-chief of the armed forces to really look, deeper into the need for state police. In the early days of Nigeria, there were regional police, there are local government police, community police. And of course, there are issues and conversations about, they are being misused either by political interests, religious interests, or ethnic interests. That can be addressed. Let's sit down and see how best to, and take models that can work for us. But a situation where a commissioner of police, as the general said, for example, in the state, he gives an itinerary of what he needs for operation and have short response time. And then the governor provides that, to that commissioner of police. And the next thing, he's posted out. And or even for the response time, he would tell him that he will need to take orders or direction from Abuja. What kind of thing is this? See, we are neighboring Niger Republic. This state that is close to alien local government. One of their governors in Niger Republic was shocked to learn that in Nigeria, governors cannot give commands directly, express commands to police commissioners and even to commanders in the field. So in my state, for example, over 500 vehicles, motorbikes, and a lot of other assets and logistics of hundreds of millions of naira have been given to security agencies, and they are doing their best. Honestly, we appreciate what they are doing in Sokoto State, but they are overwhelmed. They are out, and they sometimes their morale is down. The issue of community policing in the federal government, in the police 2020 Police Act, where the recruitment were made, the federal government have not been able to pay. They have not been paid up till now.
Well, Honorable Kakali, clearly there's so much to talk about, and so we'll have to revisit this matter at a later date because we're completely out of time. But just quickly, Brigadier General Tamlong, before you go, if you could do this as quick as possible, we'll appreciate it. In context of what Honorable has said about, we've heard these directives before, you also have said the capacity may not necessarily be there. When we ask, what do we then expect of the military, given this fresh directive by the president? How should we proceed with this? What do we expect, we have to ask?
Well, we expect to see the military up their game within the limit of resource control constraints. They should change their rules of engagement. We will see probably them asking for the required equipment and arms and technology that they will require to effectively fight this. And I expect that the National Assembly will give the backing for the president to expend these resources, and Nigerians should give more will. The national will should be behind the armed forces, and the security agencies will do what they're supposed to do.
All right.
And we are supposed to be involved as citizens. I need to see the governors, the local government chairmen, the traditional rulers, the community leaders, and everybody upping the game to get an all-of-society approach to the fight against these criminalities in this country.
All right,
we want to see too that the criminal justice system will live up to its responsibility, and for us to be able to fish out the bad eggs too. I think Nigerians will need.
We have to go.
Nigerians need to fight this thing.
Brigadier General John Tamlong is the first commander, multinational joint task force. That's the MNJTF. He's also former president, alumni association of the National Defense College and Security. We've also had the pleasure of Honorable Shehu Kakali, who joined us. Both of them joined us virtually. But gentlemen, the segment may have been over, but this subject matter is not over, because can we continue to do the same things and expect a different result? Your guess is as good as mine. We will be back in just a moment. Don't go away.